All right, so this section we're learning about names of special angle pairs and what their characteristics are. So first, just to help you with vocabulary, if I have two angles that are next to each other, they're called adjacent. They don't call them angles next to each other in geometry. They call them adjacent. They should. It would make it so much easier. So adjacent angles are just two angles that share a side. Okay? That's the definition of adjacent. They share a side. Okay? Now, if I have, there's two sets of special adjacent angles. One is two angles adjacent to each other that add up to 90 degrees. So two angles that are adjacent and add up to 90 are called complementary. Two angles adjacent to each other, or two adjacent angles that add up to 90 degrees are called complementary. Yep. Now, I should tell you also that you can have complementary angles that are non-adjacent. Okay, so like if I have these two angles here, what'd I do? Go back. Go back. Yeah.
This is all yours?
Yeah.
I don't know where it went. If I have two angles and I'm told this angle is 35 degrees and this angle is 55 degrees, those are also complementary because they add up to 90.
So
Okay?
they don't have to be touching.
They don't have to be adjacent. But if you have two angles, if you see a right angle that's split in some manner, not exactly in two, but in two angles, you know those two angles are complementary. They will add up to 90. But these two could also be complementary. Okay?
So complementary adds up to 90.
Yep. Okay. If I have two adjacent angles that make a line, these two angles are called a linear pair. A linear pair. Linear pair are two angles that make a line. They're adjacent, they make a line. Okay? Linear pair angles are always supplementary because they equal 180 degrees.
I got that question wrong.
Because they add up to 180 degrees. Okay? But if I have two angles that are not adjacent, they are not called a linear pair because together they don't make a line because they're not adjacent, but they are supplementary because together they add up to 180. Does that make sense?
So it's like the same as the complement.
Yeah, if you've got a 90-degree angle with two angles that are adjacent, those are complementary, but I could also create two complementary angles that are not adjacent.
So if they connect,
like the
they're
same
supplementary?
They don't have to connect. These two don't connect, and they're still supplementary.
equals 180.
If they connect and equal 180, they're a linear pair
Oh, okay.
and make a line.
Okay.
Okay, so adjacent means next to each other. Complementary just means added up, they equal 90 degrees. Supplementary means added up, they equal 180. A linear pair has to be two angles that are adjacent to each other that equal 180 degrees. With me so far?
I think so.
Okay. Then there's one more pair of angles they talk about in this section, and it's called vertical angles.
Yes.
And vertical angles are just created by the intersection of two straight lines. Okay? And so if this angle is 30 degrees, then this angle is 30 degrees.
The other one.
this would have to be, well, my drawing's not very good because this makes a whole line, right? So this would have to be a 120, sorry, that's 150. And then this would have to be 150.
So they have to go 180 because of a.
Yeah, because it's a straight line. Yeah. So two adjacent angles in a linear pair drawing always are a linear pair. Two adjacent angles when you create the linear or create the vertical angle drawing are always linear pairs because they're always straight lines. Okay, and this is something that tricks a lot of you sometimes with drawings because it may look like maybe I have this and then it kind of goes at an angle and you think these two are vertical and they aren't because this line is not straight through, it's straight and then it goes at an angle. So these are not vertical angles, this is not vertical angles. They have to be created by two straight lines to be called vertical angles.
Don't they all equal? Wow, 360.
Uh-huh.
That's the only thing.
Mm-hmm. They all equal 360.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are our big ideas math things like pre-made, or do you make them?
I pull the questions in, but the questions are pre-made.
Could you do like half the questions you usually do?
I could,
Like,
but I didn't.
just out of courtesy, because like 31 questions is a lot.
I look at the question types, and if they're all going to take a lot of time, then I will reduce it. But if they should be pretty easy, then, like I gave you lots of CK12 this time, but they're really easy.
Is there big ideas too?
Yeah,
Ouch.
yeah. But I'm giving you most of the class period to do them. So, okay, any questions on the material before you jump into your assignments? Okay, yeah.
So how would you like define vertical angle?
You said you couldn't.
Vertical angles are created by two lines, and the opposite angles in that system are what are congruent.
Oh, I get it now.
Get it, but I think I understand it a little bit better.
Okay, so I'll be around if you've got questions when you're doing your work.